I think the most difficult and challenging thing for anybody moving is the fact that it means a change for them. As people, we're all a little bit wary of changes. However, with the right support and backup from family, other team members, it's often quite smooth and not as daunting as it appears in the beginning. So we involve families, the person moving in, their learning disability nurses, their occupational therapist. So there are a number of people who are involved who help to make the process smooth and as easy as possible for the person moving. So, when we're first told about a person who's potentially wanting to move in, we receive some paperwork from social services that tells us a little bit about the person, where they want to live, what they like, and any risks, whether they, I don't know, some people maybe bite, hit, or kick. Or there may be things which frighten them. So we get information about all that. So we then do an assessment. As part of that assessment, wherever they're coming from, they will have prepared a social story which tells them that they're going to be assessed so that they can potentially move. What we do is we may send pictures of proposed accommodation, the bedroom, lounge areas, sensory room, anything that's available that we want them to show the person moving. We give the current provider or the hospital that information. That's shared with the person moving, and then we go out and do an assessment. When we go out and do an assessment, if it's in hospital, we meet the nurses who've been looking after the person, and we also meet the person themselves. So we try and gather as much information as possible from nurses, doctors, families, friends, and then we put that into what we call a care and support plan. The care and support plan is based on the individual person. It spells out exactly what our staff should be doing to support that person, but also it tells us how they like things to be done for them or with them. So that's what we take into account to try and make it as easy as possible. Part of that assessment also includes looking at whether somebody's got any special moving and handling requirements. And when I say moving and handling, I mean, are they able to walk on their own, or are they a wheelchair user? We take that into account. That helps us determine the sort of accommodation which is suitable for them, but also it may be there are things we need to do in a specific accommodation in order to make it easy for them to live in that accommodation. So most of the time that involves asking an occupational therapist to come in, and they will tell us, can you put a stair lift in, or a rail here, or a bar, or disabled wheelchair access pathway, whatever is required, they tell us, and then we work with the OT until the OT, the occupational therapist, is satisfied that the building will be fit for purpose for the person. As a provider, it's very difficult to know how somebody feels if all you're doing is meeting them for the first time. That's why we say it's very important that when we assess, we have a person's family members there and their current nurses and team, whoever is available who knows them well. We involve them in the assessment process because they are the person who knows whether or not Joe, Tom, Harry, or Lily are happy with what we're talking about, but also they are the people who would be able to tell us that it's getting too much for Tom now, can you stop? And then we will stop. So if it gets too much, we will stop the assessment on that day and gather information from other people who are involved in Tom or Harry's care. So there are other ways of gathering information, but always what we find is helpful are the social stories which tell them about where they're potentially moving to, but also from them gesturing and smiling. And some people do talk, you know, so there are various ways of them being able to communicate with you and let you know they're happy. Some people use PEX boards or their iPad. So whatever it is they use to communicate, we will use that to help us to understand them and get to know how they're feeling. So when we receive a referral, usually it tells us where the person wants to live in terms of in the county of Hertfordshire. So it might say East Hertfordshire, West Hertfordshire, or North Hertfordshire, or sometimes it could say they specifically want to live in St Albans or Bushy. So we would seek to offer or to help find accommodation, suitable accommodation in a chosen area that the person has specified. So if they say they want to live in Bushy, if we already have a property in Bushy, then we would be looking to say to them, this is what we have in Bushy. And then if it's not suitable, we will find a property which meets their needs. And then we're not the only ones who are involved in deciding that this is the right property. We would get the person, their family, their nurses, and anyone who's involved in their care would come and view the property with us. And then as a team, including the person who's moving, we all jointly decide whether or not it's suitable. In terms of them socializing with their local community, we always advise that the person should move to an area which is near their family and friends where they grew up. So if a person has got mum and dad living in Bushy, then we would advise that they get a place in Bushy or Watford, Hemel sort of area, so that they're near to their parents and loved ones, so that the parents and loved ones can visit them as much as possible, but also they can be supported to go home whenever they want to do this. In terms of engaging with the community, if they've got friends who they used to get on well with in a previous placement, we support them to continue to have links with their friends so they can meet in community for lunches, for walks in the park, or for activities. We also support them to find a job if that is what they want to do, or to access activities in the community such as the gym, bowling, cinema, skydiving, whatever takes their fancy, which they want to do, then our team will help them to engage in that activity so that we help them to live as meaningful a life as possible. So, at the very center of this entire process is the person. They are the most important person in the process because there shouldn't be care about them without them. So we put them at the center of everything that we do and we involve them in all decision making as much as possible. Not everyone is able to understand what is being asked of them, and for that reason, we involve their families and their nurses and occupational therapists as well as the psychiatrist so that we make sure that we've taken into account anything and everything which may worry them, that we've absolutely considered everything before we start supporting a person and before we move them to their new home. We also give them an opportunity to ask as many questions as possible, to visit as many times as they would like to before they actually commit to moving. So that's really, really important, and that is key. All of us in life want to know that our choices are respected. So the person who is moving must be respected and listened to in terms of the choices that they want to make. So we will fully support them to ensure that they're happy with the decision that is made. They're happy with the accommodation we have found. They're happy with the activities that we've scheduled for them, or the job that we are going to find for them. So we always include them in the care decisions that are made, because it's all about them. And in doing that, you tend not to get it wrong. But if you don't involve people and don't listen to them, then there's a high risk of incidents and the person being very unhappy. So as long as you include the person and their families and the team, you find that there is a smooth transition from hospital to community, or from another home which is out of county to a home which is in the county near their family and loved ones.